Namaste everyone, Sri Ramajayam. I am at a loss of words to match the level of inspiration given by Sri Arunimaji. So I'll try and cut short my talk and continue something of my story, which it will be very arrogant to say, which coincides with her spirit, but let me reveal that she has been an inspiration behind one of my books, and I'll tell you the journey of that book. Just to recap, I was an investment banker, working with a venture capital firm, enjoying reading proposals, business proposals by entrepreneurs, startups, everybody out to change the world, going through everything. Okay, this doesn't suit our mandate. Okay, this is good, but still okay. Like that. We accept something like 1 in 300 proposals, which had begun to start to get onto my nerves. I am spending all my time saying no, rather than creating something positive, which is why, with encouragement from family and bosses, I decided to pursue my passion for Indian Puranic stories. I was a storyteller in my family, narrating stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata to my younger cousins, nephews, nieces. So I am the storyteller of the family. I decided to make that as my career rather than pursue the conventional path of saying no to every 999 out of 1,000 proposals that I get. I found that more encouraging to my. I started with my first novel, Abhaya. I'm a lover of Lord Krishna. I dare not say devotee because he'll start testing my bhakti, which I'm bound to fail. But I am a lover of Lord Krishna, and I wanted to write one of the very inspiring episodes of his life, that is Narakasura Vadha, where he married 16,000 women and saved them from ignominy of being held captive by a demon. That was something which stuck to my heart ever since I read the story of Lord Krishna, and I wrote that from the perspective of one princess who was rescued by Lord Krishna. In that process, I started rediscovering the world of Mahabharata from an altogether new perspective, and as luck would have it, publishers would not look at my proposal. They'll say, okay, mythology is, first of all, I don't know why they call it mythology. We are a living religion, we are not a dead religion. It should not be called mythology, it should be called Puranic corpus, according to my view. We have an Aitihasic corpus, we have a Vedic corpus, we have a Puranic corpus, so please don't call it mythology. That's my one request to all of you here. So okay, this genre is there, but unknown stories may not be the, where readers might not like unknown stories. And some publishers used to give some automated reject reply. You know that they haven't even read through it. And finally, I decided I'm not going to. I have been in a position of saying no, right? I know what it is. So I am not going to put myself on the other side. Let me take the plunge. Let me self-publish. And I self-published my first novel on Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. And with some support and encouragement from some very nice organizations like Indic Academy, Center for Indic Writers, the book started doing well. And the story starts from here. My protagonist was a female hero. The heroine belonged to the era of Mahabharata. And now I was searching for some story. There was a scene in the story where a father would tell an inspiring story to his daughter. I wanted that story, the story within the story, to be inspirational. So, this is a warrior princess. it has to be a warrior, and it should be a woman, and it has to be older than Mahabharata. That's my constraint. I started searching for stories of warrior women older than Mahabharata. And before I reveal the theme, let me ask people here. I mean, you just heard the very inspiring and energizing talk from Arunimaji. The field of the idea of prosthesis. How many of you can say where did the idea of prosthesis originate from? Sorry? Close, but not quite. Huh? Right. The first reference to prosthesis is from the Rig Veda. Right? And when I stumbled upon this story, this queen called Vishpala, she loses a leg in a battle. And she is given a metallic leg by twin gods Ashwinas. And she fights with that metallic leg. And this story is being mentioned in international medical journals on prosthesis, international conferences happening in Israel, US, UK. And as an Indian, I had never heard that story. How ironical does that seem? I mean, you can just gauge to what depths our education system has fallen down, that one of the very proud milestones of human civilization, almost nobody knew. And it was not like a normal person doesn't know. I was somebody who had a lot of passion into the area, and I didn't know till that point. That's what compelled me to, I had to come back to this story. I have to really, explore this story. And once Abhaya was done, I revisited that story. The source literature was just a couple of hymns. This was all. She was a queen. She lost her leg in the battle. Then Ashwinas gave her a prosthetic leg. She fought with that leg. That's something which comes twice or thrice in the Rig Veda, the 10th book. And there's nothing else. I mean, how am I supposed to make a whole novel out of a 4-line story? If it's Mahabharata, say, the latest book is on Draupadi, yes, she has a whole story, she has a whole journey. Sita has a whole story, whole journey to write novel, maybe not one novel, but a lot of novels about. But how am I supposed to create a story out of these 4 lines? That's where, many scholars, well-wishers, they advised me, this doesn't have the material for even a short story. Don't even think of writing a novel out of it. You'll not do it, and you'll not be able to do it, and you'll get demotivated, and in your stage as a writer, you need more successes of books. So, shelve it and write something else, probably some other Mahabharata story or something where you have material. But somehow, the fact that an Israeli journal discusses the idea of prosthesis being Indian, and we don't know it, it stuck to me, and I could not leave that. And call it madness, I prayed to all the gods and somehow got the story done. Sometimes, you have to, not sometimes, but as storytellers, it's not only our right, but it's our duty to add creative value to every story we write. Or else, if I write the same thing as Bhagwan Vyas has written, my royalties also should go to Bhagwan Vyas. I cannot take my royalties. I can take royalties only on where I could add creative value. So I still went ahead with my story, and this time there were other well-wishers telling me to send it. This time you send it to publisher. You already have a successful book out there. They might, the chances are greater that they accept this proposal of yours. Somehow I was not prepared to wait, and I was pregnant with my first daughter, my daughter, and I was not prepared to wait. I decided to, I had sent a proposal to a publisher. 1 month down the line, I decided, no, I'm going to take it back and self-publish it, because I just want the story to reach as many people as possible. I want the story to inspire people, make people proud of their own roots, and I don't want to wait for anyone else to say no. So I withdrew my proposal from the publisher and released it. This time it was a runaway success, much better than whatever my first book has achieved in 21 months, this book achieved in a couple of months. In its e-form, the title is Avishi, Vishpala of Rigveda Reimagined. Please look it up. And this story, the turning point is when this story was picked up by a major production studio for screen adaptation. So they said this is India's answer to Wonder Woman. We have real Wonder Women amongst us. That was something which stuck to me. We don't have to, unlike West, we don't have to go to total fantasy and create characters out of air for inspiration. We don't have to think about, Wonder Woman is the new icon of feminism, inspiration to women. We had strong women in our history. We have real women in flesh and blood, India's answers to Wonder Women, and that will soon reach either a big screen or small screen. That's the studio's decision. That's something which totally, it was a revelation to me on, it's more like a, encouragement to my own decision. Everybody used to advise me to write some known stories and not so much unknown stories. You'll find difficulty in marketing unknown stories. There's a whole thing, marketing is a whole new thing out there. If you write on, say, some Sita, Draupadi, it's like people know Draupadi, people will want to read it. But Vishpala, who's going to, first you have to introduce the character of Vishpala, and then say, what's her speciality about, and then market the book. That's not going to happen. That's what was the advice given by very well-meant advisors, who are all happy today for me. But I am very happy that I followed my heart, I followed my passion, and defied their scholarship. And today we have India's answer to Wonder Woman. And the journey continued, and my study of ancient Indian women also, it underwent a whole new arc when I started studying every source literature with this empowered perspective. And then came a proposal from a traditional publisher. We're happy with the success that you've achieved with your self-published books. Why don't you write a book for us? That's a commissioned book for a writer whose proposals have been rejected by all the publishers. The publisher himself approaches her telling, we want you to write a book. And that's another moment of, I don't want to say achievement, but something that stands by and says, within and says, okay, good you followed your passion. Good you followed your heart. And that's how my latest book, Draupadi, happened. And now people may ask me, how is your Draupadi different? There are 1 million books on Draupadi out there in all possible languages, of India, and very successful books. And how is your Draupadi different from all the other Draupadis? I would want to say my Draupadi followed actually the way we studied, study is a boring word, right? The way we perceived Draupadi from, version to version to version. So if I want to ask you, what are 3 words which come to your mind when you think of Draupadi? Anyone? Panchali, yep. As a princess of Panchala, you mean? Sure, and? Huh? Lord Krishna, yes. Yeah, they were great friends. About her character? Sorry? Yes, very, very independent. Strong. I mean, I am proud of you. I am very, very, very happy that none of you said vengeful, because that's exactly the portrayal of Draupadi that happens in popular culture. She did not want to, wear her hair till the blood of her enemies was, spilled, or that's one version. Then there are these folklores saying she had some secret love for Karna. I don't know from who created that. Ved Vyas did not write anything that supports that assumption. I don't know who created it in between. But it's like a strong, now you are saying I'll say it's a feminist creation. When I say feminist, it's the Western imported feminism, which wants to see Draupadi as somebody who's forced into polyandry, somebody whose love was not, who had this unrequited love, and somebody who could not follow her love, and somebody who had this insults heaped on her. They've made a victim out of Draupadi, basically. They've made a victim out of our strongest heroine. And this was the narrative that I chose to challenge in my narrative of Draupadi. Draupadi was not a victim. She was the Shiro. She was the Shiro of that fateful game of dice, that Dyut Sabha story of Mahabharata, where all of us feel a bit of shame that happened, that heinous incident happened. All of us feel that we can't avoid that feeling of shame. But Draupadi was the lady who is the ultimate heroine of that scene and not a victim of that scene. So what happens, according to Vyasa's, not even my story, but according to Veda Vyasa's creation, Veda Vyasa's documentation, what happens is, Pandavas lose their wealth, then Yudhishthira starts betting and losing all of his brothers, then himself, and last, he wagers and loses Draupadi. Then she's called into the Sabha. And, there's an attempt to, Dushasana attempts to disrobe her, which was thwarted by Lord Krishna. Even that is kind of a, disputed incident, but we'll leave it to scholars. Then after that, the real story happens after that. We see the power of Draupadi after that, where she uses, in a very parliamentary language, she challenges the validity of the game. She makes, then one by one starts dissenting that game. Vikarna starts speaking against his own elder brothers. Vidura starts warning the king Dhritarashtra. Then the rishis, one by one, who were present in the Sabha, start lending their voice to Draupadi. And finally, Dhritarashtra is compelled to annul that game. So where did she, the whole loss that was accrued by Yudhishthira, she totally turned it back. Now, isn't that feminine power? Isn't that the power of Indian woman? And she does it just based on her intellect and education, not with some war cries, not with some cries for revenge, and not with those kind of melodramatic this one, but based on her education of the Shastras, she challenges Dhritarashtra, she challenges that game, and once, then Dhritarashtra says, okay, you know, a lot of wrong has been done, let's forget everything, you ask for what? Well, you ask for a boon. And she says, first, free Yudhishthira. No, I don't want my husband to be a slave. I don't want my son Prativindhya to be known as the son of a slave. So free Yudhishthira. Dhritarashtra says, done. But no, this is not enough. You have to ask for something more. And she says, okay, free the rest of my husbands and their weapons. There's this strategy building up. Then he asks, okay, just your husbands and their weapons. Yeah, done. But this is not enough. You know, ask for something more. She says, no, there's no need for me to ask anything more. My husbands know what to do. They are free, they have their weapons back. They know what to do. And then Dhritarashtra realizes what he has done. And oh my God, okay, I'll not let it come to that. Please take back your kingdom and go back your home. Let's pretend like this has not happened. That's the way she reverses that incident. And how many of these TV serials or movies or the popular fiction books have actually portrayed her intellectual prowess the way that Bhagwan Vyas has actually showed? How many? Almost every version of every popular adaptation of Draupadi picturizes her as a victim where she was the heroine. Isn't that patriarchy? So Vedavyasa came up with the most feminist heroine, and we've made patriarchal popular adaptations of Draupadi. So aren't we wronging our ancestors and then wronging ourselves with those colored lenses that we wear, thinking of our women as victims where there were heroines? So that's a question I would like to leave you all with, because once you are empowered with that strength that our ancestors had, even you can create history like they did. And that's my duty as a storyteller, to inspire one and all. And I hope you get inspired. Thank you so much.